Hey guys, Coach Mike here, and today I wanted to talk to you about how imagination is everything. Imagination is everything in life, in business. I know that you all probably know who Mark Zuckerberg is, or Jeff Bezos, or Bill Gates even, right? These are guys who have big businesses, right? They're businesses that we all know of, that the world kind of admires in a way, and sometimes it brings a little heat to you, but we all know of them. And these big businesses, they started off as little small thoughts, maybe even a dream one day, right? It started off as something that they simply imagined. And Albert Einstein says it best when he says, "Imagination is the language of the soul. Pay attention to your imagination and you will discover all you need to be fulfilled." You see, when I think about this quote, I think about the story that Shaquille O'Neal told about Kobe Bryant. One day while they were in practice, which actually took months of practices, but while coach was talking, Kobe was over by himself and he was kind of dribbling a pretend ball and shooting and looking at his form. All the while, the coach is talking to the rest of the team. He's making noises, he's grunting, he's head nodding. I'll go ahead and put that link to that video in the show notes below, but I just thought, wow, that's exactly what Albert Einstein was talking about. Being able to imagine himself with a ball, being able to imagine his form and his shooting and his skill actually sharpened that skill. That's arguably why Kobe Bryant is one of the greatest of all times. Now, I also kind of thought about this when it came down to a book that I love called Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. Now, in it, he talks about hypnotism. Now, I got to tell you, in the beginning, back in the day, I used to think that hypnotism was fake. You know, I kind of seen it as that 3-card Monty player on the side of the road, right, in New Jersey or in New York, hustling. Essentially is what he was doing, right? And I would think about, okay, no, the people that he's quote-unquote hypnotizing are actually his friends. People who he's hired on to play along, right? And they would begin to, kind of cluck around like a chicken or whatever the case. But in his book, Psycho-Cybernetics, Dr. Maltz began to talk about the psychology behind what happens in your mind when you are actually being hypnotized. That when you open your mind to believing something like that, it actually can take place. Literally something or someone can be able to take over or plant an idea in your mind that if you believe, your entire body will be in on the act as well. And so he gave the example of a person doing the hypnotizing told their victim, right, that they had a finger that was as hot as an iron, right, that it was a hot scalding iron, and every time they touched them, they would get burned, right? And he goes on in the example to say that once this person was hypnotized and the instructor kind of poked them, every time they would wince, they would say, they would feel the pain. And you may think, okay, so where are we going with this? The crazy thing is, whenever that person would touch them on their arm or poke them, you would actually see where the potential burn mark would be. They would actually feel that pain. The neurons in their mind and their nerves in their body actually felt pain. Although in reality, their finger was no warmer than anyone else's, they actually felt the pain. And their skin showed signs of that warmth, of that heat. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty remarkable. And as I began to read that book and began to do a little bit of my own investigating, right, I found that to be true. The mind is so powerful that even if something is not there in reality, if our mind believes it to be there, it's there. If our mind believes it to harm us, we feel the harm. And it makes me think of a time personally in my own life when I was able to see the power of the mind. Now, I was an engineer, so I was always behind a computer doing AutoCAD, and I loved what I did, but I was in a building that had no windows. So up in Illinois, where I'm from and where I was doing this work, I would go to work and it would be dark outside. And when I would go to leave, it was again dark outside. And so because this place had no windows, I never actually seen the daylight for about 2 or 3 months. I would just be in this office working on things. And so I thought I'd try out coffee. I need some energy. I've never really drank coffee before, maybe but 2 or 3 times my entire life before this point. But I'm 18, 19 years old, how bad can it be? Well, I made that coffee and it tasted like candy. So I ended up having like 5, 6, 7 cups of it throughout the day. And being that I'm already a highly energetic person, I probably did not need that much caffeine, nor did I know or understand what would happen if I drank that much. But I did, and that night, I laid down to go to sleep, and what felt like minutes after closing my eyes, I felt something run across my chest. I mean, just ran right across my chest while I'm laying down in my bed. So I jump up, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what was that? As I look around the room, it's dark, but I mean, my eyes have adjusted, and so I can kind of see something in the corner of my room. A little shadowy figure. And from what it looked like, because of the big puffy tail, was a squirrel. Somehow, a squirrel had gotten into the house. And so here I am, getting ready to get up and go to my parents' room. I lived with my parents at the time, and I'm thinking, let me go ahead and let them know that somehow a squirrel got in the house. As I began to walk toward the room, the squirrel jumped on me. I grabbed it, so I felt its body in my hand, and I threw it again. I'm thinking, okay, this squirrel is kind of aggressive. It keeps jumping on me. Let me hurry up and get to the room. Let my parents know I need y'all's help. We need to get this thing out of here, right? And so I get up to their door. Literally right before I knock on it, this squirrel just jumps on me for the attack. I mean, it's scratching my back. It's running all over the place. And so I'm thinking to myself, let me get to the living room, because I think that room is big enough for me to get some space and really try to catch this thing in order to put it outside. So while it's running all over me and I'm trying to catch it, I end up turning on the lights in the living room, and finally I see it. It's just sitting there on the couch, taunting me. Now, the crazy thing about this is now, even though the lights are on, this squirrel is still nothing but a shadow. It reminded me of those weasel balls that they used to have at the toy stores. I think they're dog toys, but I remember my stepdad playing pranks on my little sisters and I with this weasel ball. But anyways, this squirrel looked just like one of those weasel balls. And so I'm looking at it like, what is this shadowy squirrel-like creature if it's not really a squirrel? And so I made up my mind that I'm going to grab this thing, I'm going to catch it. I'm probably going to have to fight the thing in order to get it out of the house, because I mean, it's not going to just let me take it outside. And so the tussle began, right? I began jumping on furniture, trying to catch the thing. I ended up crouching down on the floor on top of it, getting it kind of between my knees, and the first thing I thought to do was just to punch it. So I'm just throwing haymakers at this little shadowy figure squirrel thing. About that time, my dad comes stumbling into the living room, right? And I say stumbling because at that time he had broke his foot, so he was actually on a cast. And he's looking at me, and I look over at him, and at that moment, I see like a sign of confusion. He looks at me, kind of looks at the squirrel, and then he just turns around and bolts back toward the room. So I'm thinking, okay, this is one of the boldest dudes I know. If he's running the other direction from this thing, I should probably stop fighting it and run as well. Just try to just get away from it for now, right? Maybe we'll call animal control or something, I don't know. And so I run back right behind him. My mom is on the door to their bedroom, scared out of her mind, like, I don't know what's going on. So she's just sitting on the door is locked. My dad is standing there like banging on the door, like, open it up, open it up, open it up. I'm out there with him like, yeah, Mom, open the door. Let's all get in here, right? And at that moment, the squirrel did one of the absolute worst things a squirrel could have done at that moment. He stands on my dad's cast. Without thinking, I see this squirrel, and I'm thinking, I can't let the squirrel get in the room. I gotta get him. And so I lift my foot up and stomp down as hard as I can, unfortunately onto my dad's cast. At that, he busts the room door open. My mom kind of flies into the closet. He runs in, I run in, she grabs me, bear hugs me, and body slams me onto the bed. No lie. She body slams me onto the bed, and she's on top of me, and so my arms are kind of at my side. And I'm thinking, Mom, what are you doing? Like, that squirrel's gonna get in here. We gotta close the door. And I remember her just being like, Mike, it's okay. Like, settle down. Settle down. There is no squirrel. I'm thinking, what? Like, I've been battling this thing for the last like 10 minutes. Of course there's a squirrel. And she's like, no, it's not real. There's no squirrel. And at that point, they thought I was on some sort of drug or having a bad trip. But really, it was because of that coffee, all the caffeine that I had. I was hallucinating. But it got crazy when it came down to me saying, you know what? No, because I feel the scratches on my back. I feel them. Take my shirt off, and sure enough, there's scratches all over my body, on the back of my neck where this thing was crawling around. And So now that I think back over Dr. Malt's findings when it comes to hypnotism and how powerful the mind is, that's exactly what happened. Although the squirrel wasn't real, the hallucinations were. I was really hallucinating. I was really awake. I was wide awake. And the scratches that my body began to kind of take on, the welts that I had on my skin. I mean, the mind is very powerful. The imagination is powerful. And you may be wondering, Mike, what in the world does squirrels have to do with imagination in my business? Well, imagine if the things that we imagined about our businesses, we believe them just as much as I believed that squirrel was in our house that day. Imagine if we believed for our businesses. Just like they start off as small thoughts for the big business leaders that we know today. What if our business could make us financially free? What if our business could help us support other people as employees? What if our business could become a publicly traded company? Like, what if? It all starts in the imagination. If only we can get to a place of letting go of that pride, of that weird feeling of I'm an adult. That seems far-fetched. I'm not going to sit here like a child imagining to be their favorite superhero. This is business. This is real life. But what if? What if real life wasn't as real as we thought it was? What if the things that were unseen, the things that we only seen in our mind, could be the things that we could project into our world? Where would you be? Where would your business be? So if you have a small business and you're ready to move to that next level, please check out our website at speakaudibly.com and schedule yourself a strategy session. We'll love to help you out. We'll talk soon.